This is Support is Sexy, episode 259, with Tara Winston, founder of Interactions. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And today I'm excited to talk to Tara Winston. And what I loved about our conversation, many things, but Tara has owned her business, her consulting and executive coaching firm, Interactions, for 9 years, so almost a decade. And what I love that she was so honest and open about was in the beginning and throughout her journey, those moments where you experience FOMO. And for those of you who don't know, FOMO is fear of missing out. So you might have FOMO when you're thinking you should be doing what everyone else is doing, or it's a hot trend of the moment. We get caught up in that. There's things on social media that make us experience FOMO. There's things that you think you might need to change in your business because of what everyone else is doing, or you think it would be smart for you to do. So not even as much copying everyone else. You just feel like, why am I not into this? Or should this be something that I do also? Could this work for me? So those are real conversations that we have as entrepreneurs. And Tara talks about her evolution through that process and how she got over FOMO. So some of the other things you'll learn on this episode from Tara is the importance of not being discouraged by pace. Everybody goes at their own pace. Also, how to change your risk profile, how to recognize when your job isn't the problem and what your quote unquote new job pattern looks like, how just trying can be truly empowering, why you must have a side hustle. So even if you have that full-time job, which a lot of you do, you got to be about that side hustle too. Why Tara's coach advised her not to create a business plan, which I thought was very interesting. So listen out for that. How to not get stuck perfecting rather than profiting in your business, and how to surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, not just where you are, but where you want to be. So I know you're going to enjoy this episode. You know, you can go to supportissexypodcast.com after you have a listen and just search for Tara, Terra. Her show notes page will pop up, links, resources, how to get in touch with her, all the good stuff. All right. So now without further ado, Tara Winston. So Tara, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for this and for doing this podcast for women entrepreneurs out there.
Absolutely. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
I so love how that question is phrased. So I started off with a little bit of lust for entrepreneurship. When I was in graduate school, I was in Silicon Valley at the height of .com crazy. And so I found myself in awe of all that was happening at that time it was companies that were exploding every which way. It was larger than life CEOs. There was all this stuff. And the reason I call it lust is because I kept looking at it in awe, but I didn't feel it was for me. It felt like very much from the outside. And it wasn't until years later when I realized that I came to a point where I knew if I really sat down and asked myself the things that I love to do, I knew it, and I kept trying to fit it into the structure that is a job, right? Like, if I crunch it these ways, then I could do it with this company. If I twist it this kind of way, then it fits in this job description. And someone said to me, why don't you just do the work you want to do? And I looked at them, I said, well, that's not a job. And they said, that doesn't mean it's not work.
Right. Now, why do you feel like you felt like, I'm sorry to interrupt, why do you feel like you felt at the time that entrepreneurship wasn't for you? Was it the kind of businesses that you were observing in Silicon Valley, or what was it about it?
I at the time, I didn't have the big idea, right? It's going to be a Walmart, but only online. Like I remember, at the time, because I have the gray hair to prove it. Back when we were beta testing this little thing called PayPal and
Wow.
SurveyMonkey, and all those ideas were just kind of bubbling up when you were in the know. And I kept saying, well, I don't have the big idea. Or then people would kind of come together as collectives around one person's idea, and I just didn't have the passion for it. And part of it, I definitely was very much raised to be the good girl. I was the one that did great in school. I studied hard, and I do think that at times that can make it easy to keep your head down and not dream as big.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being there, it felt a little bit like if you've ever seen someone trying to jump into a double Dutch rope, like, oh, I could do this. Oh, I'm not ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this would be great. Oh, but I don't have a big idea. And so, it was very much me. It was funny being in that environment. You saw lots of people just kind of jumping into the fray, but it's still, I had my own internal stuff that I had to manage and process through. And honestly, I have to tell you, I don't begrudge my path, because so much of what I did, in those interim years, my years of desert, I guess, between my entrepreneurial lust and the love, really contribute to how I run my business, the things that I do, and the more truths that I know about myself that I then pour into my business. So I don't regret it. But, I definitely, I would hope that another woman in my position who did have enough of that passion would jump right in with both feet and not wait.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're a Jersey girl, right? We talked about that a little bit.
That's right. I am very Jersey, very East Coast, but I've been in Chicago for 17 years.
Wow. Now, what were you like growing up? What part of Jersey were you in?
So I grew up in a town called East Windsor, which is not too far from Princeton.
Oh, okay. So what were you like growing up there?
Oh, okay. I want you to picture this: huge glasses and braces.
I love it. Sounds cute to me.
Very, very much. I was an avid reader. And very much, I was raised to this idea that your number one job while you're growing up is to get an education. My parents were so very strong on that. Both of them had grown up, in the segregated South in North Carolina, and for them, education was the key to give you the freedom that you needed. And so they were relentless in kind of hammering home, like, this is the thing you do. So I was very intellectual. In terms of just reading, consuming, and learning. And so, it's so funny. I was reading something, and I called my mom, and I said, Mom, what did I want to be what did I say I wanted to be when I grew up? Mm-hmm. And she said, you never said, which I think is hilarious, because how many times do people ask kids this? But the fact that I didn't have a kind of a monolithic answer for one day I'm going to be this. I think as a young person, I was a learner, and I wanted to learn and experience and figure out everything. Which I think says a lot.
It does. I think so too. Just this idea of not, even if you weren't conscious of it at that time, like, I'm not going to box myself in. I'm going to see where I'm sort of drawn to. And I feel like we'll talk about more later. That's sort of a reflection in your work now, or at least it seems like you try to inspire people to look at in their own lives.
Exactly.
What would you say, or who would you say were some of your greatest influences growing up?
It sounds very trite to say, but I definitely will say this: my parents. And I think for different reasons, everyone who comes from a strong family has parents that will inspire them. But when I was in high school, my mother decided to go to college for the first time, and I would come down in the morning and find my mother asleep face forward in books. And this is a woman who worked a full-time job, had 2 kids at home, had a husband that she was a supportive part of the family, and then after all that was over, that's when she would start to study, and it was important enough for her to keep doing. despite how hard it was. And for me, that really cemented the importance of working for what you want, but also the importance that this knowledge base kind of gave you. And then my father, for a long time, he was a truck driver for UPS, and he ended up getting promoted into management. Mm-hmm. And when you come out of segregated schools in the South from way back in the day, some of the ways that you learn, the things that you do are an uphill battle when you get to something like, oh, hey, you're going to be a manager. And so I watched him really kind of fight through. And my father is where I get my tenacity, mm-hmm. because he would have a saying, and he would say, if someone is doing it, that means it can be done. And if it can be done, that means I can do it.
Nice.
Right? And it may not be fast. It may not be easy, but it doesn't change the fact that I can. Right? And so that tenacity and persistence, but also the ability to not be discouraged by pace. Because, these days we want things to happen fast.
Right.
The honest answer is, what it may take for you to get to that goal line may be much more than the guy or the girl next to you, but that doesn't deter you if that's what you really want. And so when you take, that tenacity, and then my mother's kind of real strong value around education and pursuing those things that work, those pieces together really strengthened me, through the lows of entrepreneurship, and also give me wings to soar on the highs.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Those are powerful. I'm going to take that quote from your dad. I'll give him credit. Thank you. But two things that you mentioned really struck me. One, the idea of your mom going back to school when you were in high school. You were about the third woman that I've talked to, all these wonderful women I get to chat with, who spoke about their mothers going back to school when they were either, elementary school or high school, or at least when they were at the age where they could observe that and just what it took for their moms to go back to school and get that education while still raising the family and doing all of these things. So I just find it so inspiring to know that so many women, and obviously there's a lot more, but just to hear the stories of women who made that choice and how it affected their daughters and watching them do that.
Well, and I think there are a lot of women who they want their daughters to have more, but they want to hide the struggle that it takes them to give them more. And there is honor and nobility in that struggle, and what you communicate through it is a gift that keeps giving to them. I think there's so many people feel guilt around, like, oh, I wish I had more. I wish my kids didn't have to see me struggle. And honestly, I wish too, no one should have to struggle. Mm-hmm. But to then bear some type of guilt about your children witnessing the struggle, that's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. And so hopefully, what you've seen with your guests, and if there's anyone that's listening, to know that there is nobility and soul in whatever you go through, and let your children witness it and let them grow from that.
Mm-hmm. That is a word. I love it. Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say that you thought, you mentioned going to college and observing in Silicon Valley all the things that were going on. What did you have in mind at that point that you wanted to be after school, or what were you studying at that time?
Well, so my path is so convoluted, which I think all the best stories are, right? Mm-hmm. I actually went to undergrad for engineering, and came out and went into management consulting. And I honestly, when your dad was a truck driver growing up and your mom was a trailing spouse, things like management consultant aren't really necessarily in your list of jobs to have. Or
like, what is that? Right.
Like, huh? And so when I got to college and kind of through the majors and my classmates, I learned about this thing and became a management consultant. And I was like, this is fun. But I realized that when you take a technical degree plus management consulting, people wanted me to be more technical than my heart was. So, and I quickly learned that I did not give a damn why things worked. And I have to tell you, that is one of the most important questions for an engineer. Why did this work? But I was so curious about how and why people work. And so I kind of had that on as a hobby, as an interest on the side, but I never thought about it as an actual job. And so that's when I ended up going to business school to broaden my opportunities, right? So I wouldn't just be this girl with a technical degree, that I really had a good vision. And of course, like all good MBA students at the time. I said, I'm going to be a brand manager. Those are the people that make the good money and rule the world. And it was a great story to tell myself for a little while. I even did the internship and got the big job offer and all of that. And I had to sit with myself and say, self, is this what you love? Is this what you want?
And
the answer was no.
Right. And it was during. So now where did you go to undergrad? What school?
So undergrad, I went to University of Virginia. And then for grad school, I went to Stanford, which is how I ended up in Silicon Valley with all the craziness. Right. And so I kept so as I'm sitting there in Silicon Valley watching all my friends kind of going to startups and starting their own businesses, I just kept saying, this isn't what I want. So I was one of the few, the mighty that would apply to jobs. And at the time, for anyone who was in that California region in that crazy time, I would interview with companies, and the people interviewing me would look up and say, well, how come you don't want to do a startup? Everybody else does. I had to justify why I wasn't looking to make millions and millions of dollars at pet.com.
Right.
In interviews. And so, but I really, I had to sit with myself, and I recognized that this thing that I wanted to do had to do with people, and the best way to do it was to go back, and I actually went back into management consulting, doing human capital, organization design and development, understanding how people in organizations operate together and how to make them the most effective. Now, I'm sure for 99% of the audience, that probably sounds terribly boring, but it got me excited.
Mm-hmm. And how important is it, speaking of that, how important is it to, especially when you're in an environment, whether it's, Silicon Valley when everyone was launching businesses, or other spaces that we find ourselves in where even if not everyone seems like they're doing one thing, but you just know that something's not resonating with you and you have to find the courage to sort of do that other thing. How do you feel like you really got through that time? Did you talk to other people about it? Did you just make a decision to go in a different direction? Or what was it for you when you were facing that time in your life?
I did talk to other people about it, because there is a voice in your head that keeps saying, am I crazy? Do all these people know something I don't?
Right.
Or why don't, right? Like, am I missing the boat? Am I going to regret this? Because every moment feels precious, especially when you have something like that. Every moment seems precious. Like, if I don't do this, I'll never get this chance again, right? That's that voice that echoes in your head. Now, Elaine, you and I both know that voice is a liar. Mm-hmm. You may never be able to do that one specific thing again, but there are millions of other wonderful things that you can do. But at the time, I really was kind of caught up. But for me, I had to settle with the fact that the risk factor for those types of roles, combined with how much I didn't have the passion. Like, you got to have one or the other. Like, am I going to take on something this risky and not be excited about it and not want to do the work? Mm-hmm. I finally had to really take a broad perspective. And that's, even today when I have people that are trying to make very hard decisions, oftentimes we're way too close to it. We've gotten ourselves so wrapped up that we've gotten black and white binary choices. So if I do this or this, one will lead to ultimate happiness and fulfillment, and one will lead to death. And I must choose correctly. The stakes are way too high at that point.
Right.
But if you pull back, I kept saying, you know what? If I ever need to go, if I do get that passion, I'll just find my way back. And that finally became the conversation that allowed me to breathe.
At what point did you decide then to start Interactions?
Well, so I went back into management consulting, focusing on people, and even then left consulting, and I joined PepsiCo, and I was working in organizational development and then human resources, and I was on that ladder, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I always tell people, I had gotten to a point where I had a door, in corporate with that, like, you get a door.
It's a big deal when you get a door.
It's a big deal. So one day I found myself sitting in the office after people had left and with my lovely door closed. And I felt so lost because I was so unhappy. I was unhappy with the work. I was unhappy with a lot of things. And so that's usually the time when I start saying, okay, but but this is worth it. It's building towards this thing that you want. And then I realized I kept looking up at all the different positions. Like, okay, so if I get promoted from here, I'll do this. And then the next promotion is this level. And as I kept following the food chain up, I realized that other than the money, the title, the status of those things, the actual work I didn't want to do. And I wait a minute. All the hours and all the time and energy that we put into our jobs to look up and realize that I don't want to actually do that work. Like that shook me to my core. So then you're like, okay, now I passed up the Silicon Valley thing. I put these hours in. I'm sitting here, huh? And so I had to take a step back, and I ended up, it's the very natural knee-jerk reaction is, well, I'll just get another job. And so I started interviewing and getting jobs, and then turning them down because I didn't want that work either. Mm-hmm. Now I was in a panic because I'm like, well, maybe I'm just broken. Maybe I just don't want to work. And
you start to think something's wrong with you, right?
You do. You look inside like clearly, because people would love to be where I am, right? People fight for these kinds of jobs. And so I started working with a coach. And it was in a program to help you figure out your whole life. And he pulled me aside after one of the sessions, because it was a group training class. And he said, Tara, I don't believe anything that you're saying. Like when you talk to the group, I don't believe any of this. And he finally got me. And what I admitted to him at the time was, look, I've done all the books, right? What color is your parachute? What do you want to be when you grow up? Who's your mama? Like I've done all the books, and I know that I love to grow people. I love to coach. I love to train. I love to speak. I know exactly what I love to do. And he said, well, why don't you do that? I said, I've had that job, and that job is this. But I was bored in that job. And the more I started to talk through it with him, I recognized I wanted to do the pieces that I loved in the way that I wanted to do it. And all of a sudden, entrepreneurship, this thing that felt like something that was for someone else way over there, it came to me because it became the solution for me to do the things that I wanted to do in the way that I wanted to do them. It was an answer all of a sudden. And it fit, and it was like an old friend that I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of this before? Mm-hmm. And, and the ultimate conversation was everything about this entrepreneurship thing feels and sounds great, but I am so scared of it. I think I described it to him as, it's like extreme gardening. If you don't grow, then you starve. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, he said, well, why don't you go out and grow something?
And what was your response? Did you think, why don't I?
I was like, because like, again, I had all the fear, and I think there's a blessed few of us who just have no fear, just dive head first. But for anyone who is thinking about jumping off and has the fear, know that I kind of stood in that moment, and I realized that all the fear in the world was not going to make me feel less miserable in these jobs I was going to take. Mm-hmm. And I actually had to change my risk profile. And so what I realized is that I would usually get a new job. And so here's the new job pattern for anyone who may be like me. Brand new job, year one, learning a lot. This is cool. Year two, now I'm really good at it, and people tell me I'm good at it. Aren't I so good? This is still cool. Year three, I'm bored. Why are the hours so long? I hate the wallpaper. Let me get another job. So, and usually that's when you get promoted or when you start looking for something else externally. And so what I told myself is that I knew that I had a guaranteed 100% chance of being unhappy in 3 years if I went back and got another job. Mm-hmm. I had a 50-50 chance of being happy with entrepreneurship. And so that changed the risk profile for entrepreneurship being risky versus not. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I was going to ask you I was going to ask you to explain the risk profile, but you just did, is sort of weighing the risk of staying, in your case, the risk of staying versus the risk of starting a business, and saying, you know what, I have a 50% chance of being happy in doing this entrepreneurship thing and giving it a try. And what I think a lot of us often forget too, is you can always go back, maybe not to the same position or whatever it is, but it's sort of give it a try. Do you feel like even just trying for you was I won't say as satisfying, but at least you're trying?
Yes, and I would say it is very satisfying, right? Because you start to realize that you have more power than you thought you did.
Right.
That you, there's something very empowering about being able to lay your claim to the world and build it out. And even just trying it is really, everyone should try it. Like, I want everyone to at some point at least have a side hustle.
That's what I
to
say.
Understand.
Amen.
You know?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, even if you don't leave, have a side hustle.
I mean, I think it's huge, and because, you know, fear of losing your job, fear of not being valued, the psychic toll that places on a person is huge, right? And so from an executive coaching mindset, if I start working with someone and they hate their job and they hate their boss, you know, I've seen people get physical ailments because they feel trapped. And literally, once you take away that trapped feeling, their health gets better. Their outlook gets better. Some choose to stay in the job. Right? That's how powerful this mindset is. And so, by having a side hustle, by understanding that you have the ability to create your own, that you are not someone that is beholden to anybody else if you don't want to be. Now, I fully support anyone that wants to stay and work in a corporate career, because you know what, as an entrepreneur, I need people to work in my company. Right. So it's not saying that entrepreneurship is the only way, but to not feel like you're a pawn. That's what the power is.
And what kind of support, speaking of the executive coaching, what kind of support do you do through interactions with your clients?
Well, so it's nice. I get to play in a lot of areas. That goes back to like you said, when I was a kid, I didn't have one thing I wanted to be. And so you know, the mission of my business is to help good people to do great things. And so that's individuals and entrepreneurs and even people in organizations. So when I work with individuals, I do executive coaching. I've got some people that come to me out of pocket because they feel stuck in life, and they want to find their way forward, or they want to be more effective in the roles they play. I have entrepreneurs that are figuring out their businesses, and they want to create a business that's in alignment with who they are, with their core values. Or I have organizations that recognize that their people are their strongest asset, and how can we help them navigate the internal and the systemic barriers that keep good people from rising to their full potential. And so it's fun. So sometimes you may find me on a conference stage, you know, giving out words of wisdom. I could be training a class or doing some facilitation internally for a company, or even one-on-one with my clients, just kind of being that sounding board and confidant to help them navigate their lives.
Now, for the people listening, because I have a lot of listeners who do have side hustles. They have a full-time job and a side hustle, or they're either in a transition stage, so having a career for a certain amount of years, just as you and I talked about. You get to a certain point as an executive, and then you decide to make a change. So a lot of listeners who are in some kind of transition stage. So I'm curious for you, when you did make that decision, okay, I'm going to start my own business, what was that? What were the steps like for you? Did you get clients before you made the leap? Did you decide to just leave and go into it? Did you say, I'm going to save up for a year? What do you think about that process that you could share with us as some options?
Well, definitely. So I had saved up a little bit, but I didn't know I was going to start a business. Like, I kind of walked through this conversation with this guy, and he was like, you should start a business. And I had already quit my job by that time.
Oh.
I quit trying to figure out what I was going to do. I really thought I would take a bit of a sabbatical, and then I would maybe look for another job once I had clarity on what kind of job I wanted. So I was, I had really taken myself, and made a leap, but not the leap to entrepreneurship. I felt like I couldn't figure my way into an answer when I felt like when I was crazy at the job. So I did not have a big amount of savings because I didn't know I was going to start a business when I left my job. But one of the wisest pieces of advice that I got, and I will tell you, this is not what any of the books will tell you to do. So you can take the advice from the spirit that is given. But the coach that I was working with, he said to me, go out there and start selling and don't write a business plan. Because he knew, and he was absolutely right with having worked with me, that I would use the business planning process as an excuse to feel like I was moving forward, but not taking the scary steps to actually closing business.
So you think that was...
And I find lots of people...
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'm sorry. You're probably going to answer my question.
No. Well, no, like that. I mean, that is a huge block for a lot of people. It feels like you're busy, and so you get to pat yourself on the back at the end of the day and be very self-satisfied. But never take on the scariest part, which is going out there and asking somebody to give you some money.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell people too with the planning stage. Like you mentioned, if you're going to do that, you have to give yourself a deadline, or I say a launch date of when you're going to start that next thing. Because like you said, that stage, it can go on forever.
Oh, forever and ever. And I would have been that person, Elaine. I would have been sitting around arguing with you about why I needed more time. And so he told me, he said, go to, and at the time, I think it was Kinko's, which doesn't exist anymore. He's like, go in there, create a business card, and have them print out a couple hundred for you, and then have lunch with a bunch of people that you know and tell them, this is what I do. Do you know anyone that could use some work? And the very first deal that I closed was $500 at a friend's small business to ghostwrite an article. Now, you will notice ghostwriting an article is nothing that has to do with my actual business that I do now. Mm-hmm. But it was something I could do. I could sell it, and it was the first check that came into my business.
And you did it. And that's the thing that counts. You did it. It was the first, the it being you went out there, you got a client, you did the work, like you said, it's not exactly what you do right now. That's another thing I think a lot of us, not stay away from. A lot of us think it's supposed to look a certain way, right? Like, oh no, that's not right. Mm-hmm. That's not within what I want my business to be. I'm not going to do that. It's sort of, no, get started. Do the thing, and then figure it out. Yeah, do the thing.
It was great, and then in that same time, probably within a couple of weeks, of doing the lunches and pulling out my business card and explaining it. One of my mentors, she said, you know what? I think there may be some opportunity. Get this, at my old job. So they knew that I knew the culture. They knew my skill set, and I ended up turning that into a 2-year project.
Wow. And that's a thing too, right? Leaving on good terms.
Because
you never know. You work with them again.
Exactly.
So for you then, have you been, how long has it been now since you had your own consulting business?
It'll be 9 years.
Oh my gosh, that's great. That is amazing. So how has it been for you after you got that? Okay, let's say you did the $500 client, then you worked with your former company. I'm assuming that was a bigger contract. What was it like for you once you saw it start working, when you realized I do have a business here?
Breathtaking. Because the honest answer is the first couple ones, you're like, okay, is this just a fluke? Am I really doing this? You always have kind of two different minds. And, remember, I quit my job without having any idea. So my inspirations, my parents and my family, they were like, this woman has lost her mind. Right. And the whole first year, they would just call me in the middle of the day and say, so what are you doing? Like, just like today at 2 p.m., what do you do? Right? And so there was a part of me from the outside was like, this is crazy. Is this really happening? And once you start getting your sea legs, right? The big contract was not 100% time contract, so I was still pursuing work. And that's when you start to get out there and you bump into people, right? You see other people, you start to learn what other people are selling, and then there's a bit of wonderment, right? Because you realize, I'm way better than that person over there. Wait a minute, how come people are buying up their stuff? And so there's an interesting journey through the process of saying, am I good enough? I think I'm good enough. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm good enough. But, it doesn't even take me being as good because this person over here is making a ton of money. So yeah, I went through all the emotions, absolutely all the emotions those first couple of years.
What do you love most now about your business and what you offer to your clients?
I love that it is authentically from me. So that the values that I believe in, the things that I want to put in the world, and I really do feel that this business is my personal contribution to this world. And I want everyone to believe that in the work they do. And I don't care if you make widgets, there's a way that those widgets serve the universe and serve the world around us. And so for me, it's so wonderful to have someone call me and say, this is what, when you coach with me, this is the result. This is how I feel. This is where I am. And that's powerful, or to see teams that evolve from dysfunction to being able to operate well together. Like that just gets me so excited. And, a big part of my core values and what makes entrepreneurship so delicious for me is that I really value freedom. And I love the fact that I can say, you know what I really want to do? I want to do more of this. And I can create it. Mm-hmm. And I really can build that piece into it. Whether it's writing a book or whether it's creating a whole new wing of my business, like that's exciting.
You have that control to be able to do that, to create that. Exactly.
I have the control, and it's probably less the control, but I love the creativity of being able to of bringing it to life. What I like about the control factor is I don't have anyone telling me no. if this is what I want to do. So for me, it's less about the control and more about the creation. But let's be absolutely clear. Having power and control over money, resources, time, and those things in your life give you the freedom then to express yourself in whatever your values are.
Right. Absolutely. Now, one of the things I've heard you say that you went through a period of trying to understand why people who did, quote unquote, all the right things were failing or struggling. So I wanted to know from you, what was that time period like and what was going on at that time, and what lesson did you take from that?
Well, so it was interesting because part of that was my story, right? Like, I checked all the right boxes in the how to be the right kind of professional. And then I found myself sitting in an office with a door, miserable. Mm-hmm. And so, but as I started to build my business and began individual coaching, I kept hearing the same story echoed over and over and over again. And, what you found is people that from the outside looked very successful. So they've got great jobs. They went to the right schools. They have, if you go to their Facebook page, you see smiling pictures of families and friends. Mm-hmm. And then when you talk to them, they're in some level of turmoil. They feel frustrated. They're lacking fulfillment. And then on top of all that, there's a layer of feeling guilty for feeling dissatisfied when most of the world would love to have what you have. So, there's a double kick. And what I learned about working with them is that universally there's a place for, and it comes very heavily with women because I think women get it first. But as I talk to my male clients, I'm seeing in them as well. It's very easy, relatively, to get pretty far and not ever having to check in on what you really wanted, the dreams that you've always had, the things that make you sing. And we are socialized to believe that put away those childish things. Now as a grown-up, this is how you get to work. This is how you make money. This is how you adult in the right way. Mm-hmm. And those parts of ourselves don't just go away and shrivel up and die. They sit inside and they whine and they fuss. and they wait for us to remember that we're allowed to be whole people. And once you get a chance to say, you know what, I deserve to be happy with this. I deserve to have other facets of myself. You know, I do a women's retreat called the Soul of Success. And one of the very first things we do is we take off all the roles that we carry, because roles have expectations, right? There are ways to be a mom, a wife, a caregiver. There are ways to be a boss or employee. But deep underneath all of that stuff is just Elaine. Elaine, who is sometimes goofy, and Elaine, who is sometimes likes to read old French novels, and Elaine, who likes to, who loves the smell of baking cookies. Whatever those things are, that person often gets denied. And so by letting people tap back into what they've wanted and then show them how to responsibly bring that to the forefront in your career, in your life, in your world, then you get to be a full person. And that's what's fulfilling.
Right. And so many of us, as you said, we sort of fall into these roles of, I always say, what we're supposed to do as opposed to what we're meant to do, because it's just the way our system works for a lot of us, even though I feel like millennials sort of are going against, flying in the face of all of that, doing the things that they feel they're meant to do. In addition, what would you say, Tara, entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
It's taught me about all the mental barriers that I put myself in for a very long time. These boxes that I play within, like you said, with these expectations, like, let's see, I should wait my turn for things, or if I work really hard, people will notice, and if they notice me, then I'll get accolades, or I need recognition from these things. I had all these weird limiting beliefs, and not weird meaning that they're uncommon, but weird that now that I'm on the other side and see how limiting truly those limiting beliefs are, they really are just beliefs. Mm-hmm. Like I said, like perfectionism is one of those that I still struggle with, and when you have someone, that, like, if anyone was like me, they did the good grades in school and studied hard and did all the extra credit problems and all that kind of stuff, a conscientious kind of person. Do you know how I was almost insulted when I got here and saw people selling things that I thought were half-assed, and people buying them, right? And then getting mad because, I was like, my stuff is better. I should be making more than they make. But I wasn't out there like that person was. I wasn't selling it the way that person was. I was sitting back and perfecting my stuff in a room by myself. And so while I was perfecting, he was profiting. And so really, understanding that so much, there are a lot of external factors that will impact your success. There's no question about that. But I think as a woman and as a human, there are so many internal factors, internal beliefs that entrepreneurship has caused me to shine a light on, and I've had to test them.
What is the moment like when you realize, let me see, how can I say it? For me, I'll speak for myself. For me, entrepreneurship, speaking about some of the moments that you mentioned, it has sort of made me check myself. You know what I mean? It is it's the coach I never knew that I needed. It's sort of, I didn't realize I was, like you said, being a perfectionist, or I didn't realize there's so many things that I just observe from the entrepreneurial perspective that I didn't think about when I was in a different space.
Mm-hmm. Oh, entrepreneurship is like the biggest microscope on yourself.
I know.
Right? Like, you're like, oh, I'm really bad at that. Oh, wow.
Exactly. Huh. That's what I talk to women, and it's like, I always say, it'll show you what you're made of or not. Right?
It is. It does. But at the same time, I think it's healthy. There's something really, really important about saying, oh, I am just really bad at this, and I'm not going to spend the time to be better. I can hire somebody to do that. Maybe I can find my way around it. But it's okay to not be good at this thing because I'm fabulous at this other piece over here, right? Like it forces you to kind of to stand kind of naked in the mirror to yourself. If you really want to make this work. Now, there's a lot of people who aren't willing to really go that deep and recognize the truths about themselves, and those are the people that stumble. Because they don't build a business or processes or practices that are truthful enough to make them successful.
And I think one of the things that I meant to mention earlier when you were telling the earlier part of your story, just about you were sort of in this questioning phase, an interview I did with this woman, Patricia Moreno. It's a very early on episode, I think number 19 or 35 or something like that. In any case, it just echoed what you talked about, the importance of, she said that she learned eventually how to stop looking for the answers and just live the question. She knew she had questions, right? I always tell people that, but when you were talking, it sounded just like that. It really resonated with me, this idea of you don't know what the answer is, and so many of us get caught up searching for the answer, and to sort of just live the question and the answer will come to you. So in the case of your coach, you were doing whatever you were doing, thinking you were hiding whatever you were hiding, and he said, I don't believe you. This is what you need to do. But in that moment, you were living the question, and he came with an answer, right?
Yes. Well, and I hate to break it to everybody, that happens over and over and over again. Honestly, for me, there's every couple of years in the business, some other question pops up, and I have to live the question until it's revealed to me, and then that's usually an interesting shift in the business. And each one of those shifts, whether they be growth or expansion or visibility, so it's not a one and done thing. Like once you get over that first hurdle, like, yay, I started the business.
Right.
It's a continual process.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you say your support network looks like today?
Wow. I have lots and lots of concentric circles of support. Like I don't believe in kind of one support system will then, be able to power all of my needs. And that's a surefire way to exhaust your network, first of all. And they mean and can provide different things. So, I have a very small company. I tend to work with subcontractors if I need resources to do delivery. But I finally, a couple of years ago, invested in my chief of staff, who's my number 2. Her name is Latoya. You can't have her. You want her.
Hey, Latoya.
Hey, right now. Exactly, right. You want her, but you can't have her. But no, Latoya is phenomenal and has been instrumental in kind of helping me. And she's really the backbone of the company. So, in the smallest sense, I have her. But also, I've got a group of other executive coaches that we just check in every once in a while, because there's something about being the conduit of other people's concerns and challenges all day, where you need to have someone that understands that. And we're constantly balancing each other out, bringing each other up to date on new information, processing challenging situations, that type of thing. So I've got functional practitioners, that help me do my craft. I've got a circle of entrepreneurs that we have been building together. And so, if I have a question about something that I'm about to go into and they've already done, or if we just want to lament on any one of the things that you might want to from the entrepreneurship phase, so I've got an entire circle of people who are in this journey that entrepreneurship is. And then I've got, a set of mentors that I've picked up around the way, and some mentors are really because we work together, or just people that I admire and that I think are good stewards of my mind and my heart as I try to figure things out. And then lastly, I've got this really great group of friends cross industry who just have a sense of who I am and where I want to be, and can hold that for me. And it's been really nice along the way. Not everyone is going to be able to come all the way with you on your journey, right?
Can't come.
As you can, everybody can't come. But when you get a group of people that really that believe in you, and your dream is not theirs, but they want you to get all the dreams you can possibly dream, like that's empowering. And so, that group of friends you can call when you're scared. Like I gave up a big contract, a really big contract, because it was stifling my business growth. So it was the right answer. But my bank account looked at me a couple of times like, you sure?
Are you, we want to discuss this? You sure?
Like, maybe we should talk, right? And having a group of people who, some of them have never run businesses, they've never felt this way, but they still could be there emotionally, where I could be vulnerable with them to deal with all the stuff in my head. And I think that's really important. We sometimes forget the emotional support. So I am constantly finding, a really nice support system. And, I will, from a coaching perspective, I always tell people that you should look at your network and your support system and evaluate how well does this serve not just you today, but where you plan to go. So if you say you want to change careers, and right now, you're working in marketing and you ultimately want to have a business where you're making health supplements. Well, how your network may be absolutely perfect for you to be the chief marketing officer, but that's not where you're going. So that is a failed support system if you really have these other dreams. And so you have to, constantly be evaluating and augmenting your support circle to get you where you want to go.
Thank you for all of that, sharing all of that. But that is excellent advice to think about where you want to go as far as the people you surround yourself with or at least interact with. Because so many of us look at where we are and get around those people, which is supportive too. But as you said, this idea of where are you going, where are you headed, and how can you get around those people and learn from them along the way?
Exactly.
Very powerful. Now, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Wow, that's big. You know what? So I would probably thank my best friend in the world. Her name is Althea, and we've been best friends since middle school. And I would say that what I would thank her for is that she had undeniable faith in me in the times when I did not. And she would push me. She would constantly, in the way that only someone that absolutely knows all your flaws, all your challenges, she would push me. And so it is very rare to have people in your life that don't have an agenda for you, right? And as much as husbands, parents, all those people, they have visions for you that are beautiful, but it's their vision. And so sometimes it's easy to trip over their visions. And I will tell you, as a coach, a lot of times, like my clients will come to me because I too have no vision for them. I want them to get what they want, but I tell them that I don't care in the most beautiful ways, right? I don't care what you do. I want you to be successful at it. And so for her, I would say thank you for caring so hard that I was happy and at my most fulfilled, but not giving a damn about what that meant. Very rare to have.
Beautiful. I love it. So now tell us how we can support you. I'll have links to your website and social media, but for those listening, tell them how to get in touch with you and anything else you want us to know about.
Sure. I love meeting new people. I love the dialogue. And so definitely come to me on social media. I'm on Twitter and Facebook at Tara Winston because I'm not very creative with the funny social media name. Just my name.
Me, right?
I don't know. I have enough time trying to remember all my passwords. Just come to those places. Stop by my website at interactions.com. It'll be in the notes, and get some information. And if you have an organization or if you yourself feel stuck, please connect with me. Let's talk about ways that if I can't help you, we can give you some resources to help, because I need every one of you good people to go out there and do great things, because our world needs it right now.
Sure enough. Now, one thing before you go, you mentioned the Soul of Success. Is that your event? Is it a retreat or is it a one-day event, or how does it?
So it's a retreat, and we do it every other year. So it's not going on in 2017, but get connected to me, because when it comes up in 2018, you don't want to miss out. Okay. It's 3 days. It's for my women only. 3 days at a luxury resort, where you get a chance to connect with the coolest women you're going to ever meet and really dig in to what you want and how to bring it back out. Trust me, the people that come out, the transformations that you see, the ways that they look at their worlds differently. I've had people take information that that came to them in the retreat and then put it on their websites as entrepreneurs, because it allowed them to articulate specifically what they bring to this world. Like, it has been a really blessed journey, and I get excited. I guess one part would be because it's part of my business, but I get excited because the sisterhood and what I've seen it do. So please stay connected. When it comes up, I'll have some marketing announcements. You do not want to miss it.
Excellent. So everyone, make sure that you follow Tara, and I'll have links, of course, to everything. But I did want to mention that you mentioned it while you were speaking, but I wanted to go back to it. So I'm glad I asked about it. Excellent. Tara,
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us and all of your wisdom. I really appreciate you.
It's been a ball. Thanks, Elaine.
Of course. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Ask for what you want. There's so many people, I think we're socialized to say, wow, I really need this thing. And then we hope that the people around us will pick up on it. But, if you want the sale, ask for the sale. Don't just tell people how wonderful you are and then hope they're going to follow the breadcrumbs to give you their money. If you want a resource, ask people directly for it. The number of times that you have missed out because you did not explicitly ask is much higher than you'd ever imagine.
Powerful. Support is sexy. Gotta ask for it.
Support is sexy, yes.
Excellent. Hold on just a moment, Tara. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tara. Again, go to supportissexypodcast.com. Just go to the search icon at the top and type in Tara, Terra. Her show notes page will pop up. All of the links, all of the resources that she mentioned in this episode, plus how you can get in touch with her. Make sure that you reach out and tell her hello from the Support is Sexy podcast. Also, I didn't mention this in the intro when I was talking about, quote unquote, what you'll learn in this episode, but I do want to reiterate Tara's last parting piece of advice before we ended the conversation. Ask. It's so important for us to remember as women, as entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs all together, make sure you ask for what you want. I will tell you, the whole conversation was very powerful to me, but that was so key for me. It really resonated with me, thinking about how many times, even though I am the queen ambassador of Support is Sexy, how many times I still do not ask for exactly what I want. You don't need to hint about it. You don't need to, as she said, hope that people follow the breadcrumbs. Say exactly what it is in whatever way feels authentic for you, but say what you want. Ask. Maybe I'll do an episode about that. In any case, please make sure you take that parting piece of advice, whether that's asking for the promotion, asking for a new position, asking for something to support you in your business, asking for support, asking for and accepting support. So I hope that stays with you in addition to all the other great tips that Tara shared with us. Also, I am asking for you, I swear I didn't set that up that way, but honestly, I am asking you to help me help you. Go to supportissexysurvey.com and let me know what kind of support would be best for you at this stage of your business, where you are right now and where you want to be. I'd love to get feedback from you. Feedback is information. I need the information so I can make the best decisions in my business, since I am in a business of serving an audience, serving all of you, wanting to see you shine, wanting to see you win, wanting to give you the support, of course, that you need to have the business and life that you love. So in whatever way I can help, I want to be able to do that, but I just need 3 minutes. I don't think it's even more than 3 minutes of your time. Supportissexysurvey.com. Just answer the questions. Most of them are multiple choice. It's completely anonymous. And if you want to leave your information, I can get in touch with you. Otherwise, again, completely anonymous. Supportissexysurvey.com. All right. So thank you all so much for listening. I truly appreciate you. Until next time, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.